Birds of Prey gives viewers a pretty satisfying and explosive ending. But what we know about characters in their previous incarnations, as well as the iconic Gotham City setting, raises a ton of questions about what did and didn't happen in the movie.
Are we ready?
Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn begins with Harley breaking the news that Joker has quite literally kicked her to the curb, explaining the Clown Prince of Crime's absence from the film. Once word gets out that Harley is no longer under Joker's protection, it spreads fast. Roman Sionis, the crime boss known as Black Mask, sends all of his men after her. Plus, the cops and every thug who ever lived through Harley's abuses are out to get their pounds of flesh. And Harley doesn't exactly go into hiding. She blows up Ace Chemicals in a breakup announcement to the whole world. It takes less than 24 hours for all of Gotham to know that Harley Quinn just sprouted a huge target on her head. It stands to reason Joker must have heard about it all too. In most likelihood, he would know all about the plant explosion, Sionis capturing Quinn, the hunt for the Bertinelli diamond, and Quinn's dust-up with the cops. Assuming he does know what's happening between Harley and Black Mask, he probably sees it as a win-win. Either Harley kills a potential rival of Joker's, or Sionis cuts off one of Joker's loose threads for him. A reasonable enough explanation is that Joker would likely be content to sit back and let the carnage unfold, though it's still a bit hard to believe he wouldn't get involved somehow. That guy loves attention. In the real world, with Ben Affleck setting aside the role of Batman and the shaky status of DCEU's shared narrative, it isn't a huge surprise that the Dark Knight doesn't make an appearance in Birds of Prey. But in-universe, considering most of the film takes place in Gotham City, you've got to wonder exactly why he's absent.
So let me get this straight. You do dress like a bat, like an actual bat.
Worked for 20 years in Gotham.
After making a huge mess by blowing up Ace Chemicals, Harley assaults over a dozen cops in the GCPD, lets a bunch of prisoners loose, and has a violent tussle with armed bikers in the evidence room, likely tainting every piece of evidence in there. There's a killer on the loose, Huntress, shooting mobsters in the throat with a crossbow. Eventually, the clash between Harley and Black Mask erupts into a full-scale war in Amusement Mile. With all that chaos, Batman should have shown up at some point during the events of Birds of Prey, right? If we had to whip up an explanation for his absence, maybe he was working with the Justice League outside Gotham, maybe on another planet or in another dimension. Otherwise, it seems like there's no way he'd let all this criminal activity happen on his watch. By the end of the movie, Renee Montoya, Huntress, and Black Canary have joined forces to become a more permanent and comics-accurate version of the Birds of Prey. We see a quick shot of them fighting together, and though they have new costumes, Montoya isn't doing anything special to hide her identity. It makes us wonder if she'll ever take on the role she's assumed in the comics, the Question. In the DC Comics Series 52, Renee Montoya is recruited by the original Question, Vic Sage, shortly after she quits the GCPD to help fight a criminal organization called Intergang. Sage eventually succumbs to cancer, and Montoya succeeds him as the Question. She continues to use the name as well as the faceless mask, even though Vic Sage is alive and well once more in the comics. If Montoya plans to keep beating up criminals with the other Birds of Prey, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to wear some kind of mask. Otherwise, it won't be long before every crook in Gotham knows her address, and her old coworkers at the GCPD make her life a lot tougher. The thing everyone is after in Birds of Prey is the Bertinelli diamond, a special jewel encoded with the information needed to access the offshore accounts containing the fortune of the slaughtered Bertinelli crime family. As the Birds of Prey celebrate retrieving it at a Mexican restaurant, Harley and Cassandra Cain slip out the back door and abscond with it. Harley then explains that she pawned the diamond and used the money to start a new business with Cassandra. Wait, she pawned it? Considering what Black Mask is willing to do to get the gem, you would think accessing it and using the data herself would bring Harley and Cassandra a lot more money than they could get from even the most generous jeweler. Harley isn't exactly the most reliable narrator, so it's more than possible that she's leaving out some details here. The account information somehow got back to Huntress so she could reclaim her family's fortune to fund the new team at the very least. One of the more compelling characters in Birds of Prey is Dinah Lance, also known as Black Canary. We met her first as a singer in Sionis' club, and eventually she's promoted to be his driver. Shortly afterward, Renee Montoya comes calling, and the detective brings up Lance's mother, who apparently at one time assisted the Gotham police. Montoya urges Lance to be more like her mother, which prompts Lance to remind Montoya that her mother was killed without any police there to help her. Montoya insists whatever happened to Lance's mother wouldn't have happened on her watch. We're never told exactly how Black Canary gets her sonic scream powers, but the Montoya-Lance exchange implies that perhaps Lance was born with the abilities and that her mother had them before her. Perhaps her mother actually used the name Black Canary before her death, and perhaps she was a superhero. The comics version of Black Canary notably inherited the name from her crime-fighting mother. The origin of the comic book Black Canary has been changed several times. In some versions, her sonic powers are magical in nature. In others, they're the results of experiments. Birds of Prey ends without us knowing exactly where Lance's scream comes from. During Harley's assault on the GCPD, Harley notices a wanted poster with Captain Boomerang's mugshot and says, "Hey, I know that guy." She knows him because they helped save the world together in 2016's Suicide Squad. Choosing Boomerang as the wanted man is interesting for a couple of reasons. For one, while Joker springs Harley out of Belle Reve at the end of Suicide Squad, Boomerang's still a prisoner. So if 4 years later he's a wanted man in Gotham, either he's already been released or he escaped. And Captain Boomerang's usual stomping ground is Central City, which is why it's Ezra Miller's Flash who nabs him in Suicide Squad. So why is this poster up in Gotham? One intriguing possibility is that Boomerang wasn't released and didn't escape. Perhaps he's still working for Amanda Waller's Task Force X. His work for The Wall recently brought him to Gotham, and the local authorities weren't informed. It wouldn't be the first time Waller kept her team's work a secret. In the mid-credits scene in Suicide Squad, Amanda Waller tells Bruce Wayne,
"You look tired. Should stop working nights."
implying that she knows he's Batman. If Waller has the kind of resources to unearth that secret, then how could Harley Quinn's actions in Birds of Prey possibly stay off her radar? Waller is not someone who likes it when her pawns are taken away without her permission. When Joker breaks Harley Quinn out of Belle Reve at the end of Suicide Squad, the breakout would almost definitely be followed by a massive attempt to get Quinn back. It's likely she would eventually resort to unleashing the rest of Task Force X to retrieve her. And again, Harley doesn't exactly make herself tough to find. She walks around in broad daylight in Gotham City, robbing grocery stores and crying over lost breakfast sandwiches. It seems likely if Waller wanted Harley back in Belle Reve, she'd be in Belle Reve. Maybe in the upcoming sequel, The Suicide Squad, we'll learn exactly why Waller stays her hand. One possibility, Waller might naturally assume that with Joker and Harley's bizarre relationship, having Harley on Task Force X will always invite Joker's attention. Maybe between Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey, she decided the risks weren't worth the rewards. Roman Sionis and Victor Zsasz have a strange relationship. Zsasz is Roman's right-hand man, utterly loyal to him in every way. He also seems to love pushing Roman toward his darker urges, almost daring him to kill anyone who gets in his way. While we never see any blatant romance between the characters, there are a number of scenes when they get very close. Zsasz in particular expresses a simmering passion for Sionis, though it isn't clear if that passion is romantic or part of Zaz's obsession with Sionis' violence. We never get a clear answer, and both are dead before the credits roll, so it's likely we never will. There was a partial answer from the actors themselves, though, in late January 2020. Speaking with Variety, Ewan McGregor first said the villains' relationship was very complicated, and then eventually it was more than likely they were lovers. Those answers weren't enough for some fans who accused the actors of marketing the characters as potentially being gay while failing to solidly represent a romantic relationship between two men on the screen. By the end of the movie, Harley has run off to start her own thing with Cassandra Cain, leaving the Birds of Prey to fend for themselves. So one has to wonder what the relationship will be now between Harley and the woman with whom she formed a brief but successful alliance, if any. On one hand, Harley more than proves in the final battle against Sionis and his army of goons that she can be a team player if she's invested in the goal. On the other hand, considering her career trajectory, it seems pretty likely that if Harley and the Birds of Prey ever cross paths again, they won't be on the same side. She may have genuinely enjoyed her time with her new friends, but her alliance with them is still largely one of circumstance and convenience. Add to that her theft of Dinah's car and the fact that Harley is now unquestionably contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and it'd be tough to blame the birds of prey if they choose not to pull their punches next time they see Harley. Dinah and Helena seem to have put their criminal past behind them by teaming with an ex-cop with a clear sense of right and wrong. Viewers who stuck around until the end of the credits know there was no post-credit scene in Birds of Prey, but there is some brief audio. Harley tells us we deserve something for sticking around so long and promises to reveal a secret. She says, "Did you know Batman?" And then the audio cuts out. We don't know for sure what secret Harley was going to reveal, but it seems the most likely candidate can be found in DC Universe's Harley Quinn animated series. The cartoon includes a lot of violence and profanity you wouldn't expect in, say, the 90s Batman the Animated Series. One recurring joke in the series, starting as early as the series premiere, is Harley's insistence that Batman does very inappropriate things with bats.
Why are you protecting a psychotic clown who treats you like garbage?
Ask the guy who f***s bats.
He doesn't do that!
Considering the very noticeable F sound Harley makes before her post-credits audio cuts out, we're guessing if we heard the whole thing, it would echo her animated counterpart's beliefs. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about the DC movie universe are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.